February 6th. To order at 6 p.m. Roll call, please.
Mayor Copeland is absent. James Burton.
Here.
Ken Jones is absent. Jeff Guard.
Here.
Alina Meyer.
Here.
Ann Schaefer is absent. David Allison.
Here.
James Weiss.
Here.
That's a quorum of council.
Okay, the work session of this evening is on the Cordova Bear situation. Representatives from the following organizations have been invited to attend: at city staff, Village VIAC, ADF&G, State Troopers, Forest Service, and the Cordova Ranger District. I think I see somebody from most of those agencies out there. So with that, we'll get started. Hang on. I will let Alan get us started and do any other introductions that need to be done.
Well, you have a few documents in front of you. One is a memo from city staff. It's a summary for the stuff that we've done as a city in preparation for this meeting and in response to a meeting that we had last year sometime. Charlotte, what was it? Do you remember the date of that?
It was in late August.
Okay, late August of last year. So we have 6 things that we've done on there. We've purchased 65 bear-proof dumpster lids, right-of-way permits, but you can read that. There's copies on the table over there, I believe. In addition, you have from us a detail of bear calls from 2012 through 2018. And we did not necessarily map those for you, but you have all the numbers of calls. And then you have a ADFG recommendations, and I believe Charlotte has a presentation prepared for you. So with that, I'll turn it over to Charlotte, and then we can figure out where to go from there.
Well, good evening. My name is Charlotte Westing. I'm the area biologist with the Alaska Department of Fish and Game. And I'm gonna get my equipment going and then I'll get started. So basically, before I can say anything about bears in the community and the way that this summer went, which I've come to call this summer the Year of the Bear, Summer of the Bear, everything that we did this summer was a collaborative effort. So the Cordova Police Department, the Alaska Wildlife Troopers, the Alaska Department of Fish and Game, and then sometimes we had help from Andy Morris with U.S. Forest Service Law Enforcement. We worked together and talked with each other about pretty much every call that we had. We were regularly checking in with each other to make sure we were all on the same page on each bear situation as it developed in town. And we had the general ruling principle that if any one party decided that we were at our wits' end with a given bear, we would all support that person, and the call of use of lethal force would be made. I'd also like to recognize the Refuse Department for their hard work this summer. They went above and beyond to try to work with community and do the best they can. I know there were many times trash was strewn all over the place, and those guys picked it up diligently and tried to be as responsive as they could to a very difficult situation as soon as we realized how bad it was. 15 bears were killed in Cordova through the course of the season. 6 of those were by agency staff and 9 were by members of the public, and that's just in Cordova. Going into this season, our previous high for the entire unit, so that includes all of Valdez, Whittier, Chenega, and then the far remote areas, which occasionally will get DLPs from remote hunting areas. Our previous high was 11. So it gives you a scope. If you consider our unit-wide total was almost 30 for this year. So this year was pretty remarkable. We also had vehicle collisions with bears, which obviously costs the person who hits the bear, because they generally have vehicle repairs, and it usually costs the bear its life. We also spent countless hours on the phone advising people about bear conflicts to keep them from escalating, sometimes after they had already escalated. We went out on lots of calls, handled lots of paperwork, lots and lots of dead bears. My freezer was at capacity numerous times this summer. The Cordova Police Department alone handled over 100 calls, as the call log from the PD shows, and that's about 10 times the normal amount in the years that they were able to provide for us. So all of these estimates are conservative because nowadays people aren't communicating with us with a phone call like they once did. They don't call Fish and Game when they have something that's concerning them. They don't swing by our office. They often just take up venting their concerns or communicating about their concerns on social media, and that's something we're all trying to learn to adapt to. So this problem this summer, why did it happen? Well, bears had become habituated to human trash. And when that why is this a problem is basically what I'm presenting here. And that's because when you have bears in town, you have a risk of surprising a bear or encountering one that has become defensive of a food resource. And so that's what we're trying to constantly gauge, is what is the risk that one of those two things will happen. But a bigger risk that I see when we have an abundance of bears in town, they're feeding on unnatural sources of trash, or sources of food, trash, is that people fire shots in urban settings. And whether that's a member of the general public trying to scare a bear away and shooting over their head, but they're not trained to shoot in an urban setting and they can injure someone that way, or if it's even a professional shooting in an urban setting, it's something that professionals don't take lightly. They never want to discharge their firearm unless someone will be imminently hurt if they don't. So I'd like to hand off to Trooper Cresswell for just a moment to talk about taking shots in urban settings, and then I'll carry on with a little more description of why I think this summer happened.
Good evening. This is Trooper Cresswell with the Alaska Wildlife Troopers. What I did is just sort of tabulate data that I was able to tabulate out of our law enforcement database about the number of calls we actually responded to involving going out, spending time in the field, doing follow-up, administrative follow-up, and actually taking some sort of action. And that amounted to 48 calls. There were numerous other telephone calls and other calls where we were running from one residence to another that never made it into the ARM system, just because there wasn't enough time in the day to do that. This is sort of an over-the-thumb, it's not a detailed analysis, but so the number of bears we dispatched in our office was 5. Incidents involving livestock and animals, we had 7, at least 7 that we responded to. Incidents involving refuse, trash, and attractants, we had 9 that we responded to. Incidents involving firearms discharge by non-law enforcement were 7. And this sort of gets directly to what Charlotte was talking about. Obviously for us, do you have that slide that we talked about the other day?
Oh,
Because it illustrates rather dramatically the problem with anyone taking that shot. And these are the kinds of situations that that's a nightmare situation for anyone to contemplate taking a shot like that. I did take a similar shot to that at the airport, and it's very serious business. Your field of fire was not clean. There was substantial liability and obviously serious issues involved with trying to discharge a firearm. That's for someone who's trained and required to qualify with weapons 3 times a year, with very rigorous standards for qualifying with those weapons. And so concerns we have, obviously discharge of firearms in residential areas creates a substantial risk of serious physical injury. And the more times you do that, that risk goes up. Improperly stored refuse and trash attracts and conditions bears. So in addition to the risk associated with dispatching this animal, there's potential risk just from the animal's presence, potentially. And then the improper handling of livestock and livestock feed attracts and conditions bears as well. So those are things that we found, and it's just something we were very concerned about for pretty much every day. Obviously, our preference is, if a situation like this arises, that you have someone who's qualified handling it. And so when there are at least 7 incidents where firearms are discharged in or near residential areas by just someone, that's a very serious concern. So.
And that's not counting the ones that killed bears? Or is that counting bears?
Those were just references in our incident reports of bears killed with firearms in or near residential areas. So I just wanted to underscore that. And this type of scenario was not something I encountered once. This type of scenario is something we encountered daily, where long guns are out. We're doing crowd control and trying to control the situation and contemplating what's the best scenario here.
So yeah, this summer we all saw lots of this kind of thing. We all kind of got accustomed to it at a certain point. Spare is a little bit dark, but you've got the Pioneer on one side, Cordova Center parking lot, Copper Valley Wires, and the Cordova Center. So why was this year so remarkable? Obviously, we've handled our trash the same way for a really long time. Obviously, we've lived in proximity to 2 species of bears for a long time. Why did this year happen? And I've gotten that question a ton. And luckily, the U.S. Forest Service and Fish and Game have a cooperative research project going on right now that's actually potentially shedding some light on why this year was so remarkable. Speaking with biologists all the way from Southeast Alaska up to South Central Kenai Peninsula, this was widespread seen, unprecedented year for bear conflicts in communities and just bear problems overall. Juneau closed their botanical gardens, lots and lots of bear defensive life and property kills. One of the things we saw with our research this year, and that may explain what's happening in some of these other places. So this is locations from a radio-collared bear, bear number 25. She lives on Esther Island on the north side of the lake. And these are her locations for 2 years prior to this summer. So you can see that she used an area of about 10 square kilometers consistently for 2 years. This is what she did this year. Oops. Okay, so you can see she's covered a much larger footprint of the island. She pretty much covered the whole thing. And it looks like maybe she was contemplating leaving, crossing Esther Passage once or twice. So these callers take 5 locations a day. It's not capturing her every move. And so, you know, she could have been doing things that were even more than this. She used the hatchery at Esther a lot more than one would expect, or that she had in previous years, and she was pinging back and forth from the hatchery, which is kind of in that southern portion, up to her normal home range. And she was out very late this year. She was out probably about a month later than she had in the years prior. Another example, oops, figure out how to drive this. Oh, here we go. Bear number, sorry. Okay, bear number 13, you see the same story. It's on the west coast, about 10 square kilometer home range, used both in the summer of 2016, 2017. This year she crossed Esther Island. So in the previous summer, no bears left. This year, numerous bears left. And this is just an example of one of them. So the footprint for her habitat usage was quite a bit bigger. And another one, this one lived on Esther Passage. She has a little bit larger footprint with her going down into Shoestring Cove a little bit in previous years. But this year it was unprecedented because she went all the way up to Cog Hill. So instead of having a 10 square kilometer home range, it was more like 140. So we have some reason to think that potentially our bears were doing the same thing. So bears that were using town this year are bears that in a normal year wouldn't have been anywhere close. But they came to town, they found available food, and they set up shop. The other thing that our research has shown is we started the Bear Project in 2016, and with each successive year, we've been capturing a larger proportion of 1 to 3 year old bears. And what that tells me is that there's a slug of young animals coming through into a population. I think for a period of time, things were not very good for the bears, potentially in the aftermath of snowpocalypse. And so what we see in our age distribution in our capture is that we have really old bears and really young bears, but we're missing a lot of bears in between. So you've got these young bears coming into the population, and the adults that would normally keep them in check aren't there. Young bears need to grow their body size and put on fat, whereas an adult bear is just trying to put on fat. So they have extreme caloric needs, they generally don't have well-defined home ranges, and all of that was a recipe for disaster this year. So, we had a lot of accessible trash, and a lot of that comes from the way that people handle their residential garbage. This bear actually led to a school shutdown because it was on a Friday at about 1 o'clock. School releases at 2 o'clock, and this was on Lake Avenue. But there are countless examples. We all saw it. These are just the ones I happened to photograph. And, you know, bears would sneak into dumpsters, pull out a bag, drag it across the road and up into the woods, and then, you know, at some point somebody had to try to pick that up, or maybe they just knock over cans. At some point we got to the point where bears knew when trash pickup day was in a neighborhood, and they'd hit every single can. So people just stopped putting out their trash and started taking it to the baler. So I know what you're thinking at this point. You're thinking, why aren't people getting trash tickets? And the answer is writing a trash ticket is very hard. The citation that a trooper would use to write a trash ticket is intentionally or negligently feeding wildlife. So in order to write a ticket for that, you have to catch the bear in the trash. And bears are good at getting away with it. They sneak away, they do it in the cover of darkness, and so getting evidence of that, you know, you basically, it's pretty tough to do. All someone would have to say is, it was a dog. It was, a dog got in my trash, or my neighbor wants to frame me and they did it, or whatever, and that ticket's tough to write unless somebody takes a picture of a bear on it. Second question, is the trash bag that is in your yard actually your trash, or did the bear drag it from someone else's trash? The situation with the bear on Lake Avenue, it was actually their trash day. So did they put out their trash and the refuse department hasn't gotten to it yet? Or did they put out their trash at the wrong time? Or has it already been picked up? I mean, you can't write a ticket until you kind of figure out what's going on there, and that can take some time. And then additionally, officers often don't want to write a trash ticket. They're trying to solve much bigger problems in this world: domestic violence, drugs in our community. They want to, if they're gonna have to have a negative interaction with a member of the public, they want it to be over something like that, not something like a bear getting in trash, although bears getting in trash can be serious. It hampers the ability of our officers to engage in community policing and to have lots of positive interactions with members of the community when they have to write tickets on trash. So then, of course, another problem is our dumpster lids, which are no barrier to a bear. They can simply be lifted, they can sit on top and punch through them, and we saw that time and time again. These are lids that were busted. This is at AC, which, man, this was a smart bear. When she was killed, I estimate she was over 12 years old. She had really worn down teeth, and she knew what she was doing when she hit AC's produce discharge at the end of the day. So this one was actually an example of a bear hitting a dumpster that is not intended to receive residential trash, but gets residential trash because lots of people in town feel like they don't have a way to store their trash, so they dump it in business dumpsters. So that's an example of what this one is. This one was taken from one of my office windows. The bear, this is definitely a situation we try to avoid. The bear was in the dumpster, refuse department went to dump it, surprise! And we had to figure out what to do then, and this bear was dead within 10 minutes. It was working the bar crawl. This wasn't this summer. It was working the area between the reluctant fisherman's dumpster and the anchor dumpster. It was living on a steady diet of fettuccine alfredo and bacon fat, and when they tried to move him off of that, he's like, I'm not moving. So this summer, obviously we needed more and more bear lids, or bear-resistant lids, and we just didn't have them. So the refuse department was in a shell game. They had to try to figure out which areas of town needed the most and move them around. So ultimately, Copper River Seafoods self-fabricated a dumpster lid, and this isn't ideal for the refuse department because it's more difficult for them to open this and service it. It also is still could potentially be accessible to a bear if it got on top. It could put its weight on it and punch through. But this bear did shut it off to her. She was not able to get in anymore, but by that point, she just decided she was gonna wait it out, and that's when we had to kill her. So obviously, it would be ideal to not get to the point where we have to do that. Natural foods are all around our community, berry bushes, salmon streams. I run by Whiskey Ridge Road, and there's literally salmon in the gutter right there. My house on Chase Avenue, salmon in the gutter across from the hospital. Not in the gutter, in the little creek, just on the other side of the sidewalk. So we've got these resources around town. Bears are always going to be here, and bears will never perceive an invisible boundary around town. People tell me, back in the old days, we would shoot all the bears, and they all knew they couldn't come in town. It just wasn't safe. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I don't think you can condition bears that way, because when they don't get the message, they die. So the public wants change, but a lot of the public is asking for the police officers to shoot more bears, and that's just not the answer for the reasons that Trooper Cresswell has described. We expose the public to far more risk, because 90% or more of the time, these bears are not going to harm anyone. They are scared out of their brains as soon as they're around people, or they are just not worried about it because it's worked out fine for them for a long time. And when they get defensive, that's when we take action and remove them. Relocation is not a viable option. People ask me about that regularly. Why don't you just trap the bears and move them? We know from work Julius Reynolds did, a brown bear was trapped in town, moved to Montague Island, made it back to town, and was killed within a couple weeks. It was the same thing with a couple black bears that were trapped and moved to Gravina. Bears have an amazing capability for remembering great food resources and finding their way back. That's how they do what they do. So basically what you do is you waste a whole lot of time, you waste a whole lot of money, you waste a lot of resources, and the outcome for the bear is still the same. They still die. And so the only time we trap a bear is to kill it in a more discreet fashion or a more safe fashion. For example, in this case, there was no safe shot for that bear. You can see all the cars, all the buildings. There was a steady flow of traffic around it. There was just no safe way to do it. So that bear, we trapped and killed her elsewhere. There is lots of really good science about communities that are in a bear-saturated area. We are not the only community that experiences this. There are numerous examples in Alaska, but there are lots of examples in the lower 48. Some of the best research comes out of Durango, and the biologist that did that research, her name is Heather Johnson, she works for the USGS in Anchorage now, and her research shows that bears that are shot, bears that are hazed, will always be replaced. Either they'll come back if they're the hazed bear, or they'll be replaced by another bear if the attractants remain. If you do not address the attractants, you will just keep doing the same thing over and over again. And they've tested it. They've designated portion of the community to be their treatment, where they blitz the area with bear-resistant materials and with education, and they have a control where they do none of that. And they have the science that shows where you kill bears and where you don't, where you have lots of bear problems and where you don't. So this isn't something that I'm just making up. There's good information about this. And in Canada, there are many other examples too. So with that, I want to show a brief little thing. Testing out the audio-visual capabilities of this room. It's about 5 minutes.
Well, I know it's been described by some bear biologists as being one of the busiest landscapes where grizzly bears and people continue to coexist. And I'm not aware of any community in North America that's been able to achieve what we've been able to achieve here in the Bow Valley.
So the whole story of bears and garbage in the Bow Valley started back in the 70s. In the national parks and in Canmore, there was open pit garbage dumps, and bears routinely wandered through town seeking out garbage that people left at curbside. In 1980, I was warden in Banff Park, and we handled 75 bears that summer. That year, they also had a mauling. A single large male grizzly bear mauled 4 people, one of whom eventually died.
We called it 747 because it was the largest bear that we had on record in Banff Park. Going at night to feed on garbage from the Caboose restaurant. Leftover steak bones and steaks and chickens and chicken bones. So the bear probably been fattening on people's food and garbage for a long time. The 4 who were out fishing ran into this bear at close range while it was resting. And it attacked them. 3 of them were seriously injured. 1 person died. But everybody pretty well agreed garbage and grizzly bears or garbage and black bears shouldn't mix. It was a dangerous mix. And then Parks Canada approved, I forget if it was $1 million or $2 million, to clean up the food and garbage, and they did that.
We fast forward out to the early 90s, Canmore had been discovered. The town had gone from 4,000 residents to almost 10,000 residents. There was a group of citizens here in Canmore that were really concerned, that was trying to force town council to do something about bears and garbage in Canmore.
We were learning very quickly that there was a strong relationship between how we were managing our waste and the impact it was having on bears and habituating them and attracting them into town and rewarding them. Once that connection was clearly made, then it was, how do we change? What we thought was really fascinating is recognizing that bears can do this, right? But they can't do that. And so that's why the hinge is facing down, because that's something we can do, and the bears have much difficulty doing that. It has not gone through any changes in the last 20 years. And so it really shows the design, the interest, the collaboration really worked.
Okay.
You know, us included, figured that once we got the garbage problem solved,
I can't stop. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that and just see if any of that sounded familiar. And obviously we don't have $1 million or $2 million to address this problem. We also have a much smaller community and just an overall different situation. So I wanted to present just some ideas about what the council can do about this. I think the very first thing the council can do is develop an urban bear plan. Other communities have them. Valdez has a bear committee and they have a bear plan. This could be a plan for growing our, maybe we can't do everything we want to do now, but having objectives. We want to get to this place by a certain time. These are the things we see as the highest priority, and having potentially citizens come and be a part of a bear committee to develop these priorities. And I can share materials from other communities if you all are interested. Obviously, outfitting the dumpsters with bear-resistant lids is a huge priority for me, and I'm really happy to have learned just in the last week that it sounds like that's going to happen, and I'd really like to applaud you for your support, or thank you for your support, and applaud you for taking that action. We need to have a better plan for handling fish waste. At this one point this summer, we had 7 bears visiting the cleaning station at one point and visible to the officer that was called out there. That alone might not be a huge problem, but it is, you know, a spot where bears can be habituated to using and get very comfortable around people. People start feeding carcasses or just throwing them, and then trying to get very close to take pictures. And we got to a point where we just shut the whole area down because there was nothing to be done. I mean, nothing else to be done. It was an unsafe situation for people. So one of the problems with the existing setup is that we didn't have long enough chutes to get fish waste to the water. Second issue is that sometimes people don't put the fish waste in the chute at all. They just throw it on the rocks. But it sounds like at a minimum, we need longer chutes there and some education about what to do but the best case scenario is probably just to move the station altogether. And it sounds like the chances of that happening are pretty high. Another thing the city council can do is consider passing ordinances, but I would encourage you to consider whether or not they can and will be enforced with, again, that spirit of community policing, because our officers are trying to solve big problems and don't necessarily want to write tickets for not putting out your trash, or putting out your trash at the wrong time. But that is one option. The council could consider putting sideboards on when and how trash is put out. So some communities have rules that say you can't put out your trash before 6 in the morning, for example, on the day that it's supposed to be picked up. So you could consider changes like that. Chickens were an issue in town. Up until Labor Day, every bear that was killed was over a chicken coop. And numerous chicken populations, communities, coops were decimated by bears, and bears didn't die this summer over it. But yeah, lots of chickens were killed, lots of bears were killed over chickens. And the best way to deal with that is electric fencing, because bears will always come into the smell of chickens and investigate. And if they have some kind of negative reinforcement for that action, their chances of doing it again and again go way down. But another consideration is, how are people feeding these chickens? Because if they're just hucking sandwiches off the porch, their electric fence may not resolve all of those issues either. So there could potentially be some rules for confinement, such as mandating electric fencing or mandating a certain caliber of coop construction. I don't know. I'd encourage you to think outside the box on that. Some communities just don't have chickens in city limits, and that's how they deal with that. The ultimate goal, I think, for us for dealing with trash in this community, what I think would help us the most is to shift at least some portions of town away from residential pickup entirely, and to use neighborhood dumpsters with bear-resistant lids or designate transfer stations for people to receive trash. And I know this is a controversial idea, so I weighed out some of the pros and cons just to get the conversation started. I think you could start with certain high-density living areas that have trash storage problems, like trailer parks, and also places that are currently difficult to navigate with the trucks. And you could work out some of the pitfalls in those areas. And I think if this is done thoughtfully and deliberately, we could resolve any issues that crop up pretty easily. The pros are that you don't have to store trash until your pickup day. You don't have to worry about missing pickup times. They're more efficient for the refuse department than handing individual bags, because now they can just use the truck and just lift the dumpster in. Less picking up of trash that's been scattered by a bear, less illegal dumping in the dumpsters at the harbor, less dumping of large items that can damage equipment because they don't fit in the resistant lids. But the cons are that it would be a change, and change is hard. It could also be perceived as less convenient, especially for some of the people in our community that need a little more support. I don't think that is something that we can't overcome, though. It could be perceived as less service for the same cost. And if it's not done well, it could result in more litter from improper use. So say your neighborhood dumpster or your transfer station fills up and people start putting bags all around it, or I don't know. There's any number of ways people could mess it up when it comes right down to it. If not done well, it could also be visually unappealing, like if there's litter all around it, or odoriferous. So how to mitigate those cons, I believe, is to involve the community in the design and implementation of this program and use the youth. Future Problem Solvers has already talked to me about using this as an issue and told me this fall they were going to work on it, to percolate the message of why we're doing it throughout the community and to foster community ownership. Melina brought up the idea one day when I was talking to her, it could have a text when full sign. So if you get to the dumpster and it's brimming, you just send a text to the number that's there that with the dumpster number on it, this dumpster is full, and then it can be serviced. And we could use art to decorate the dumpsters, make them more visually appealing, and instill some community pride. I can take any questions if you got them.
Questions, anybody?
How much larger than normal, if any, did we think the total aggregate bear population was around? Or were we just seeing that many more bears because they were more mobile this year?
It's anybody's guess. Bears are really difficult. Actually, bears are impossible to estimate what their population is without really expensive research methods like collars. And our collaring project is on Esther and Knight Island. So we've never had an estimate for the number of bears around this community. But when I talk a lot with people who've lived here for most of their lives and hunted bears, you know, they talk about periods of time when you'd see 40 bears in one day on the Crystal Falls. And for a few years there, you couldn't find 4. And so I think our bear numbers were really down for a while after snowpocalypse, and now they're coming back. But as far as, you know, how much of what we saw this summer is that rebound, how much of it is the bears just covering a larger footprint, so we're seeing bears from all over, I can't say. I can only use the information I have from this other research to make a better educated guess.
Okay, and do we have any idea on den survival here
Nope.
this winter with the shape they went into dens?
We had for the first time this fall 2 bears die in the fall. 2 females just died. We haven't been able to investigate those carcasses and see if we can determine a cause of death. But we haven't seen that in the 2 previous years. So that is interesting. And then we haven't had any bears transmit on mortality yet, but the bears, when they're in their dens, they're generally in like a granite tree root interface. So we don't get any locations from them when they're denning. So if their collar is on mortality, the only way we would detect that at this point is with an audio signal. So we won't know if any of them are dead until they come out this spring or they don't come out, and then we'll know. But I'm expecting some mortality. And I think the bigger thing we could expect is less cub production this year, because I don't believe that bears really went into those dens with the reserves they normally have to do that. But we'll see.
Yeah, just for everyone, would you say between ADF&G, Alaska Wildlife Troopers, Forest Service, and any other agency we're expecting to come in contact with these transfer stations and dumpster collection, they're probably our best way to mitigating this problem?
Yeah, I've thought a lot about, well, do we need bear-resistant cans, residential cans? Do we need to get the community moving in that direction? And even if we could find a way to fund the widespread distribution of residential cans, which costs upwards of $250, my conversations with the Anchorage area biologists and with others have said that they generally get just a 3 to 5 year life expectancy from those cans. And I think most people wouldn't feel okay about that, investing that amount in a trash can and then doing it again in 5 years. So to me, I think these using residential dumpsters or neighborhood dumpsters, transfer stations, could make things a lot easier for people, especially in the summer. In the winter, when when things slow down, maybe, and you're not like cooking fresh fish all the time, maybe it would seem like more inconvenient to take your trash to a dumpster down the street rather than just out to your curb. But I think if this was marketed correctly, people could see it as a benefit. And as a wildlife professional, I mean, I think, yeah, we're never going to gain on people putting cans out, you know, that just have these little wimpy lids on them. Or even building the boxes that people build outside their houses, those were not a limitation to bears this year. They just rip them off. I mean, Kevin Kimber had like the world's most bomber box, and the bear just tore right through it. So, I mean, people just stopped using them this year. They just stopped putting trash in them. And so, yeah, I think this would be, it's the way to go as far as I'm concerned. But it has to be done thoughtfully, carefully, make sure we do it right. You know, anytime, when we were working together on all these bear calls, whenever the PD is responding to bear calls, they're not responding to DV calls or drug calls. When the troopers are not, when they're responding to bear calls, they're not finding wildlife criminals. When I'm responding to bear calls, I'm not doing biology. You know, and this is all very preventable. We can do this, and there's lots of examples of it. So, the other thing, the information from Durango did show that in years of bad natural food production, the bears use town a whole lot more than in years when food production is good. And I think that's why we've gotten lucky for a long time, is there've been lots of great years for bears. It's all been fine. And this year was just a perfect storm.
Okay, this is a workshop, so if anybody from the audience has any questions or comments, we just need you to come up to a mic because they can't hear you on the phone if you're out there in the audience. But if anybody has any questions, comments to add?
I have a question. So, Samantha Greenwood, Public Works Director. So I want to go back to the last comment you made. And, you know, we went from 10 in 2012 bear calls, 40, 11, 3, 2, 6, and now 101. So I guess one question I would wonder if you had any insight on is what impact did the poor berries and the poor natural food have on this? I mean, we've never really had this number, and are we gonna, do we need to kind of take a step back, I don't want to say step back, but kind of evaluate where we're at and see what's gonna happen? I'm not saying not do anything to prevent bears, but you know, instead of rushing into a bunch of things, maybe look at it more of an average year rather than a crisis year as it was last year.
And I wish I knew the answer to that. There is a chance that this year was just a crazy year and we're never gonna see anything like it again. Mm-hmm. But I think there is an equally likely chance that a whole bunch of really young bears just learned a lesson about Cordova, and they learned that there's a lot of food here. They learned it's a good place to set up your home range, and they didn't die. There's a lot of bears that were around that didn't die. There's a lot of bears that did, but there's a lot of bears that didn't too. So I think the chances of that are high, but also the research from Durango shows that there is a likelihood that these bear conflicts in urban areas are going to be increasing because of what we're observing with temperature changes and how that affects denning and how that affects research or resource availability and constraints on them. And you know, these other bear biologists are predicting the amount of conflicts that we see is only going to get worse in future years because our weather is going to continue to just be strange and be affecting the resource availability. But I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Sure.
Do you have a copy of this?
I've seen.
In number 1 of our 80 bear-proof dumpster list that we'll have coming into this year, do you know of the volume of our refuse? How much goes into those 80 dumpsters versus individual pickup that sets out? Do you have any idea?
No, I don't really. I mean, I could probably find something out. But the dumpsters decrease drastically in the winter. Obviously, you know, they increase dramatically in the summer.
I'm just trying to figure out if we should have asked this earlier, but what percentage of the refuse stream that is going to be going into a container that has a bear-proof lid on it? The other thing I ask you is, of the 110 bear calls, how many individual bears do you think that was? No way to know.
Oh, man, it's hard, and I tried to discourage officers from even saying, oh yeah, that's the same bear that so-and-so saw at so-and-so's house, because it's, unless you have bears marked and some way of knowing who's who, it's pretty tough to tell them apart and to really identify whether or not you have 4 juvenile bears working over one area or just one.
Yeah, just trying to figure out if you have 110 bears that are all different versus 20 that are the same that are called on 5 or 6 times. I mean, it's
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, they're,
reduces
yeah.
the whole picture, I think, or not.
I was also curious if Fish and Game or the Forest Service or the troopers had some kind of educational material that could be handed out. Bird feeders are a great example of an attractant that people don't think about all the time. Dog food on the porch, all those kinds of things that could also help tremendously if people would take on that responsibility. But I mean, I would guess that maybe not Fish and Game because it's a little more local, but Forest Service or troopers would have some kind of information.
Actually, Fish and Game has a lot of materials. So every year I write an article for the paper talking to people about all the different attractants and how to secure them. We also usually do bear talk in the summer in cooperation with the Forest Service. And there I usually hand out a number of the different materials that I have. I have magnets that talk about ways to secure your attractants and how to behave in bear country. So refrigerator magnets. I also have trash can hangers that have it says like, don't be a bad neighbor or something, and has a picture of a bear getting in a trash can. I regularly distribute some of those to the refuse department in case they are in a neighborhood where things are just going really badly. They can just hang them on doorknobs or hang them on trash cans. I don't know if they've actually ever done it. It seems kind of passive aggressive, but I have those door hangers. I have bumper stickers. We have tons of materials on our website. I try to get that information out regularly. We use our Cordova Fish and Wildlife News to distribute a lot of that information to get people who are on Facebook. But there's only so much you can do with education.
Yeah, it'd just be great if we could have some at the front desk in the city.
Absolutely.
At the cop shop.
Yep.
Wherever. Like Darky, anywhere where people could just pick it up.
Sure. Yeah, we can. And when I go to the school at least once a year, but sometimes more, and distribute a lot of those materials home. I have bear safe coloring books that talk about attractants and how to help your parents do the right thing at home and that stuff too. So, but yeah, I can make sure the city gets a lot of those materials too. We've got lots at our office.
Do you guys have any questions on the public works stuff?
I have one. How are our dumpsters currently dispersed? Do we use 80 dumpsters a year for trash collection during the summer?
In the summertime, that'll pretty much be our max. Sometimes it's even been where we haven't been able to fulfill all the needs, which isn't, that's like in those super banner pink years when, everybody's rolling at 110%. Typically, it's 75 dumpsters out in the summertime. It is a lot. Yeah.
So I guess one observation I would have is you started off your presentation when I was late, and I apologize, but when I walked in, it was a bunch of pictures of bears and dumpsters. So, and from my personal experience, having a dumpster at the bottom of our neighborhood, it doesn't help with the bear issue at all unless you have bear-proof lids. So the whole, transfer site idea sounds great, but until we implement the bear-proof lids on every single dumpster, it's not going to help. We can't put non-bear-proof lids at the bottom of neighborhoods and expect it to help the problem at all. So I think that's important to point out.
Yeah, I think all our dumpsters by March will have bear-proof lids. But we don't have enough we can't implement a neighborhood things. We don't have enough dumpsters to facilitate that. And, you know, we have we're an enterprise fund, refuse is an enterprise fund. We have to be able to pay our employees through our revenue generated and maintain a landfill, trucks and everything else. So, you know, we'll keep moving in a direction of investigating these other ideas, but we have to keep that in our mind as well.
Okay, anybody else? Last call? Chief Hicks?
And I have been passing out a lot of the information that Charlotte has over there at Fish and Game. We've been passing it out for a number of years, trying to educate people. I'd like to speak to the bear-proof trash cans. Maybe the city could come up with an incentive for people to buy those. I know they're kind of spendy, but if they spend $250 on a bear-proof can, maybe the refuge department could discount their garbage bill for 4 or 5 months or 6 months to reimburse them for the purchase of the can, and then they go back to their normal charges to give people the incentive to go out and buy them, because not everybody can drop $250 on a trash can that's only going to last 3 or 4 years. So it might be an idea to give people incentive to do that, or the city buy up in bulk a bunch of the cans and then charge people extra on their garbage bill until they're paid off. Just a thought.
Thanks, Chief.
I'll get to the line, sorry.
Hi, my name is Matt Pichet. I'm the fish biologist for the Native Village of VIAC. And we've had a couple work sessions amongst staff and trying to think about the issues that happened this summer and potential avenues to solve those. And the village is very much in favor of the transfer station idea and moving away from residential pickup and towards more of a transfer station type of setup. However, like what Ken said, if those aren't bear-proof or bear-resistant dumpsters, then it doesn't really fix the problem. So that would go along with those being bear-resistant dumpsters with proper lids on those. However, one thing that we think, and we don't have a great solution for it, but one thing that should be considered are pickup for the disabled and elderly. Not really sure what the best solution is for that, but something that we should take into consideration. Also, bear fences around livestock, we think that's a good place to start versus just totally banning livestock. I think that's worth a shot because you can try to stop that behavior before it turns into a bad one. And then also in terms of the cleaning station, one thing that we heard with a lot this summer with the shift to the harbor site is that you know, we have elders that could no longer access a fish cleaning station in Cordova because they couldn't get up and down the ramps there. And that's something that we want to be taken seriously, and we're very much in favor of relocating to a station where the chute extends all the way down into the water, even at the lowest of tides. So I think that's something that we would like to see, and thank you.
Craig Koontz, 444 4th Street. Probably don't need to give a lot of backstory, but, and sorry I showed up late too. I didn't know this was going on. I would have tried to be here first thing. That's my fault, not yours. So I caught the last 20 minutes. Very supportive of small investments in bear-proof dumpsters, not bear-proof retrofits for the whole town because we had an anomalous bear year. I really can attest to the fact that a good electric fence works very well. I have one that's, I think it was rated for like 12,000 volts or something. Sounds really scary. If there's no amperage behind it, it's not gonna do a lot, but it works really good. My wife can attest to that more so than me because she never turns it off when she goes up and gets the chicken eggs. It's really, it works really, really good. A properly installed working electric fence works really good. However, that being the case, and I don't know if it's young dumb bears or what we have this year, we did have a lot of repeat offenders. One in particular had a pretty good patch torn off of its, I think it's front left shoulder, haunch, whatever. and it kept hitting the fence over and over and over again, days at a time, days in a row, because it wanted what was behind the fence. There was no food, there was just a bunch of meals running around. That said, and I have video of it, troopers I think saw some of the videos, and Hicks and his guys, we had several bears before we had a fence, or when we had a poorly functioning electric fence, that went in, milled around. It was the craziest thing for 15 minutes. There was a bear milling around my chickens. Didn't nip at them one. In fact, this year, we had one chicken get killed by a bear. Dogs are another story, of 25 birds. So I don't know what the answer is. All you guys have hard jobs. Charlotte can attest to, Charlotte, Troopers, Hicks, and everybody in between can attest that they heard from me a lot this year, mostly because I have 4 little kids, and I have a really, really good backyard. I probably have one of the better backyards in town. I'm 300 yards from Main Street, but beyond that is the ski hill. I don't know what the answer is. I live in city limits. You know, I don't want to beat my fist and say I have rights, but if I lived at 6.5 mile, 13 mile, you know, up Orca, not to throw anybody under the bus, it'd be a different deal because you're truly out in the wilderness there. As a community member like the rest of you guys, I don't want the city council or the city spending gobs and gobs and gobs of money, which I don't know that that's going to happen. I don't know what you guys are going to decide on one anomalous bear year. Sam, or you guys had the call logs. We had not very many, and then all of a sudden a drastic spike. Who knows? I mean, one of Hicks's guys, or maybe a couple times, the city cops did some non-lethal mace rounds, OC rounds, whatever they call them. They weren't rubber bullets to the face, 20, 30 feet away. The bear came back over and over and over again. So I hit a bear in the side of the head with a rock. I was throwing black cats and bottle rockets at bears, trying to get them out of my yard. The last bear that I killed, one of the city cops was there. We were throwing rocks at it. We were yelling and screaming and kicking and everything we could do to get it out of there. And then it started to get a little aggressive, chomp it, whatever. That's my 2 cents. It was a really scary year. I almost tripped on a bear walking out of my house at 6 in the morning. One time it was on my porch. I don't know what to do. I don't know what you guys are going to do, but please don't go spending all the money on things. As Charlotte said, if these guys aren't as professionals, the cops and the biologists, if they're not out doing their job because they're focused on an anomalous problem that may or may not crop up again, then they're not doing their jobs. They're focusing all their energy and money and whatever on one thing. I don't think that's right either. So that's my 2 cents. If anybody's got any questions.
So what do you think should happen?
I just said I don't know. I have no idea.
So we're not supposed to haze, we're not supposed to buy more lids, I mean.
Can't haze.
You just said it didn't work.
It didn't work well for me, but I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I mean, you guys are here. You're here with the research. You guys are here with the checkbook. What are you guys going to do? I'm speaking for myself, and like I tell Clay all the time, I feel like I'm kind of representative of the whole. Kenny, James, some other people around. Nice. You have young families. Charlotte, Sam, you guys have young families. I don't know what to do. Aside from the rate at which I tend to make kids, I feel like I'm right in the middle of the bell curve of an individual in this town. If we need more money, raise taxes to buy all these airproof things or whatever we're going to do. I don't know what the answer is. I'm here to state my case. That's what you get paid for, and you get paid for, and all you guys volunteer your thankless time for. So,
well, I think I can answer from our standpoint. I think we're engaging in a methodical process to address this as our finances allow us to, and working with other agencies to try to solve this. You can see that we just provided a list that by March, all of our dumpsters will have bear-proof containers or lids on them. We're working on moving the fish cleaning station. Bear-proof garbage cans are available at Ace for those people that want to buy them, and we tell you about the different sizes. We're working on electric fence at the landfill, which doesn't necessarily help in town stuff, but changing methods of collection areas. We're looking at that and talking about it right now, and code changes. So I think we're, when we met last fall, we looked at addressing all of this. And if none of you attended a budget session, I just wanted to give you an understanding that this year we raised refuse fees by 5%, and I think council is working toward raising that 5% a year over 4 more years to provide additional money in the budget. As an example, this year we had to appropriate $269,000 from the permanent fund to pay for a refuse truck because we didn't have money built up. Land closure costs and a variety of things. So we're trying to rectify that situation that has been created over the years and just the way the department runs. So I think we're on a methodical path to solve as much of this as we can.
I agree, and I agree with a lot of, I agree with, I think all of this, that we didn't have to go buy, $100,000 worth of dumpsters or whatever. We'll start with dumpster lids. I think it's all great. I'm in support of all of that. Just don't do it all at once. I mean, that's it, and you're not. You guys are being very methodical about it. So I hope we don't see near the bears we saw last year.
And I think our expenditure for lids for everything was about 40 grand in that neighborhood. We budgeted 45, and that primarily came from the 5% increase in fees. And we saved a little money for cooperative public education along the way.
I think it's good, and I don't think it's going to be one entity. I mean, I like the villages here and the state, a couple agencies from the state. It's not going to come from one. I don't think it's going to come from one source. I think it's going to be a team effort. It's as most things in a small town. So I mean, I commend everybody that gets to hear from people like me. I apologize to people that get to hear from people like me, sometimes more often than not. So good luck. Thanks.
Thank you, Craig. Yeah, from my perspective, I guess I think the part of the plan going forward should be the first item on Charlotte's list there, that probably need to set up a urban bear committee to come up with an urban bear plan for the community that's made up of these individuals that are deeply involved every day with it, and go from there. But we can talk about that at our pending agenda at our regular meeting. So we're a little bit past schedule here, so we'll call the work session adjourned. And we do have a public hearing. Don't anticipate lots of comments on it, but we'll go ahead and go into that right now if Kirk is ready.
Yes.
Ready?
Yes.
Okay, we'll call the City Council public hearing, February 6th, 7 o'clock to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Copeland is absent. James Burton.
Here.
Ken Jones.
Here.
Jeff Guard.
Here.
Melina Meyer. Here. Ann Schaefer is absent. David Allison.
Here.
James Weiss.
Here.
That's a quorum of council.
Okay, our public hearing tonight is on ordinance 1173, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, appropriating $500 from the General Fund Reserve to advocate and provide public information regarding a proposition to levy a 0.5% raw fish tax on fish landed in Cordova, and a proposition approving the issuance of a harbor revenue bond in the principal amount not to exceed $5 million, both appearing on the ballot of the March 5th, 2019 regular city election, including without limitation advocacy and the dissemination of information that may influence the outcome of the election on the propositions. So if anybody has any comments on that ordinance, basically it just allows us to speak on behalf of the propositions that we have, so that we don't misstep on any public elections rules or regulations. So Any comments on that? Going once? Twice? Seeing no comments then, the public hearing will be adjourned. Okay, we'll take a couple minutes and then, or 2 minutes, and then we'll come back and do our regular meeting. Okay, we'll call the regular council meeting of February 6th to order. It's 7:08. Could you please stand and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call, please.
Okay, one more time. Mayor Copeland is absent. James Burton?
Here.
Ken Jones?
Here.
Jeff Guard?
Here.
Melina Meyer?
Here.
And Schaefer is absent. David Allison?
Here.
And James Weiss?
Here.
That's a quorum of council.
The approval of the regular agenda.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? None. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Any disclosures of conflicts of interest or ex parte communications?
Mr. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, Mr. Jones.
I may have had some ex parte communication regarding the land disposal. In trying to do my due diligence behind understanding the prior council's qualms with disposing of this lot, I talked to Mr. Baylor and also talked to Mr. Don Shosted about the development of the larger parcel and about possible easements and that access to the larger parcel and how we could try to, include that in any sort of disposal. So that was what the conversation was about.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, moving on then. Communications by and petitions of visitors. I don't see any guest speakers on the list, so audience comments regarding agenda items. Please come up to the mic. We have one on the phone, so.
Evening, Council. I'm Tanya Harrison. I've submitted the proposal for Lot 1. I just have a letter to read. That's all right. I have copies here as well if anyone wants to follow along. Good evening, Council. I would like to thank you for considering my proposal and allowing me to speak tonight. I'd like to address the city's interest in the sale of Powder Creek Lot 1. The tract of land surrounding Lot 1 runs from Nirvana Park to the Crater Lake Trailhead. Discussion of access to the larger tract of land has been limited to building a road easement through Lot 1, but there are other suitable access routes. It's clear that the prior council did not unanimously agree that the only access to the larger tract was through Lot 1. The following excerpts are from the 2016 memorandum. 616, Tom McGann said that the city had a large tract of land around the lot that is available. Looking at it, there are several access points to the larger tract, and he does not think the lot is the only access point. 716, Scott Pagao. It's hard to see why that corner is any better than any other area. Leif Stavig, there is potential access all along Powder Creek Road, but in terms of developing a road with minimal excavation, that route may be the best. So in the nearly 3 years since the 2016 meeting, no development to Lot 1 or the larger tract has taken place. Prior council's decision to preserve the easiest access to the larger tract of land, thereby sacrificing the immediate sale of Lot 1, was not in the best interest of the city. I would urge the current council to be realistic about the prospects of a developer buying the entire large tract of land above Lot 1. Isn't a bird in the hand better than two in the bush? At the September meeting, the current council discussed a motion to include a road easement across the lower third of Lot 1. Recognizing that this would hinder development of Lot 1, council approved the sale of Lot 1 as is. My proposal satisfied all of the requirements of the RFP and was unanimously approved by the Planning Committee. Council now has the opportunity to allow the construction of a new home. Lack of affordable property was frequently cited as a concern during the comprehensive plan meetings. I believe that it is in the best interest of the city to accept my current proposal and not block it for the remote possibility of a different development in the future. Accepting my proposal will provide immediate revenue for the city and send a clear message that the current council is serious about making affordable land available to citizens like myself who are looking to remain in Cordova as active members of the community. Thank you for your service and your time.
Thank you. Any other audience comments on agenda items? Seeing none, we'll move along to chairpersons and representatives of boards and commissions, CCMC Advisory Board. Kristen?
Hello, Kristen Carpenter, Chair of the Hospital Advisory Board. Let's see, we met last week. We had a couple of meetings last week. We got our audit report finally from 2017, and the auditors are scheduled to come back in May of 2019 to start the audit for 2018. Most of the comments, I would say, and the problems that were reported in the audit had to do with the fact that we are still working on getting our financial systems, financial accounts completely reconciled. And obviously, that's a big issue. It's a huge concern. It's something that makes it pretty hard, I think, to manage. Like, you know, we're managing for cash flow at this point, but we can't say with 100% certainty what how our books stand. But we have a new CFO who started 3 weeks ago, I think, and that's his top priority. He's going to work on having the accounts ready for when the auditors get here in May of 2019. And that was a big reason why the audit last year took so long. So we're hopeful that that won't be the case this year. Find out. So that's one thing that we talked about. We started, we did an evaluation of the hospital administrator because his contract expires in June of 2019. So we did the evaluation. It came out, I think, with what you would call meets expectations rating. And we're starting to talk about contract negotiations to renew his contract for next time. And then we also had a meeting with Native Village of VIAC as part of the collaboration process. They've received a grant from, I think you all know that, from the Denali Commission to look at, I think it says integrating the hospital/clinic. So we had some really good conversation around what does integration mean, what does collaboration mean. One of the things that I think I can share with this group, because it was my, what's the word? You know, when a light bulb goes off and you finally make a connection. NBE has been talking for a long time about its interest in managing a hospital facility, and you know that first started, I think, back in, was it 2009 when we went through the whole 2008, 2009, somewhere in there, when we did that big strategic planning process, and Providence and Quorum and NVE all submitted proposals to be involved in managing the medical center, and the city ended up choosing Providence. But NVE had submitted a proposal, and when we had this meeting last week, Karen, who was here, was talking about the NVE model, you know, that they had a model for helping to manage, and I kept thinking, I don't get it, because NVE doesn't manage a hospital now, but they're applying to manage a hospital. What am I missing? Well, what they were trying to say is that they have this relationship where they get a lot of services and management assistance from the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium, and that is their source of expertise and management assistance, and that were we to go into more detailed and specific dialogue about them, about collaborating with them and then managing the hospital, they would be relying on the expertise of ANTHC to help bring in whatever expertise they don't currently have. So, like I said, that was a new perspective to me, I guess. And let's see, we've had the one meeting that was in October as part of this collaboration process that involved some city council members, and I think that was the last one, or no, there was one that I missed in November, right? I guess right before Thanksgiving. Yeah, it was the Monday before Thanksgiving. And then we had this one, which was a much smaller group. It was the mayor and myself and Scott Mitchell. Alan Lanning was there, Karen Kramer, and Mark Hoover from from Alaka. So we talked about, I think we made some progress in that one. We talked about having another small group meeting to clarify and make sure we all were clear on what we had agreed to and the steps that we talked about taking before we each come back to our respective boards and constituencies and council and say, you know, this is what we've agreed on. Do you guys feel like this is appropriate to go forward with? So there'll be another meeting before we come back again with more information. And I think that's all I had to report. and I'm happy to answer questions.
Any questions for Kristen? Okay, not hearing anything.
Okay.
Thank you, Kristen.
Sure.
Is anybody from the school board here? I don't see anybody immediately from the school board. So, and no student council rep this evening, which takes us to the consent calendar. The consent calendar is before you.
And I will take the roll on that. So on the consent calendar, Melina Meyer,
Yes.
David Allison,
Yes.
James Weiss,
Yes.
and Schaefer is absent. Jeff Guard,
Yes.
James Burton,
Yes.
and Ken Jones.
Yes.
The consent calendar is approved.
Okay, approval of the minutes.
Move to approve the minutes from the 12/19/18 council public hearing.
Second.
Both of them, did you need both of them?
Oh, we don't have to do them separately?
No.
Okay, move to approve both of the minutes.
Okay, the minutes of 12/19 public hearing and regular council meeting have been moved and moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Don't have any bids before us tonight, so reports of officers, the mayor's report is in your packet. Didn't give me anything else to add to that, so manager's report. Alan.
This month, as you recall, we did a one-year extension with the IBEW for covered staff, and we begin new negotiations. That agreement expires at the end of May, and we begin new negotiations 19th through the 21st of this month, and then the 27th and the 28th. I will also highlight the meeting we had with NVE regarding the healthcare conversation, the facilitated conversation that most of you attended the last time, and this was a smaller group agreeing that there was certain information and tasks that had to be completed. I think the recommendation was to meet again with a smaller group and try to really get to some agreement on how we're going to proceed forward on that. So we haven't arrived at that date yet and have not gotten the feedback from the facilitator on that conversation, but we're expecting that. We're moving some offices around here in City Hall. So if you come in and you don't see who's in the office, just, we might have moved to, somebody might have moved to a new one. So we're trying to get people more close to where they either hear or don't hear, front desk duties and so forth. The Coho RFP is going to be issued on Friday. We got our final feedback, final approval really from form from the city attorney regarding that. RFP essentially is going to be soliciting proposals for the lot, including price, and noting that there's a possibility that certain people in the community are interested in internal systems, equipment in the building, and we're hoping that the proposer would contact those people. We're going to provide that information for them so they can contact them if they want to get some of those things out, including the Historical Society. So, because there's some stuff in there that, you know, could very well be historical. So we're making those contacts, and you should see that shortly. So we're getting closer and closer to that disposal. Just as a note, we are not going to make any money under any circumstances. We're only going to recover our costs from that, regardless of what the proposal is. I spoke with our attorney. We had, in our strategic plan, we talked about rewriting Chapter 4. As you may recall, and for those of us that weren't around then, there was a great deal of work that was done on the personnel manual as part of Chapter 4 back in 2012 and 13. I think that process was completed in 13. And you did spend, I don't know, $10,000 or $12,000 on that process. So the city attorney has informed me at this point, we don't have the final approval because that person's out of town, but from one of the firm partners and from Holly, we have a firm number of $9,000 to complete that process. So rather than appropriate additional funds for that process, I am going to try as hard as I can to use $9,000 out of the appropriated funds for the year and stay within budget if I can. We had a conversation about using the attorney this morning. We've kind of gotten a little bit lax on that where we were doing really good. So that's my plan. If you have any objections to that, feel free to give me a call and we can talk, but we think we can get that done within the budget, get Chapter 4 off our plate, complete another task on the strategic plan, and have a better system for us in terms of both the personnel manual and our personnel rules updated. So we think that'll be good. We have a memo from the attorney's office regarding revenue options for us. I sent you one a while back that had some revenue talk. This is an expanded version of that. We just got this a couple days ago. So you'll see this in your email mailboxes. If you want to pick up a hard copy, I can put one in your box. It gives us an expanded list. Holly will be here on the 20th, as you know, and we're gonna have an opportunity during the work session to speak to her about revenue options, including, I think they're gonna have a full recommendation for us for collecting the 5% fish tax that's on the ballot in 0.5% fish tax that's on the ballot for March. The 26th, is it the 26th we talked about the meeting? Tuesday the 26th. We have scheduled or are scheduling and preparing for a public meeting regarding that 0.5% fish tax and the bonds. You know, we have approval to go forward with that. We have that on the agenda tonight. Holly said we could move forward. So we're gonna schedule that, so look for that information. We'll get that out to you. It's really gonna dictate how we advertise that meeting as a potential council meeting. We'll probably do it that way anyway. Right now, it will be Public Works Director, Harbor Master, myself, and I was thinking the mayor or vice mayor to sit on a panel and answer questions. So, but if there's any burning desire for something different, you know, let me know and we'll try to accommodate that for you. We are working really hard to get our audit. Now that we have information from, you know, the CCMC's audit is done. We had a draft audit back in November, which I think I shared with you, and by email. And I don't know what changes there are going to be in that audit, but we still have some unreconciled accounts from 2017, I think. So we're trying to find those. I think we have it all done now. And so we're really putting pressure on them to get that done because they're about scheduled to come back and start again. And we've made it pretty clear that we want our audit very early this year. So I think we're gonna make progress on that. I think this year's audit was like the bear issue. It was kind of an outlier for us. There were just a number of things with new auditors and firms that came together for CCMC's audit. It was in their finance director situation or issues, and so we'll be better this year. And then, as you probably heard, the Prince William Sound Borough Girdwood Association has put that process on hold. So you might let us know if you still want us to do the resolution or wait until they get a little bit farther along, and then we can meet those needs for you. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Yeah, just one comment. I ran into Shelley Wade at Bedarkie one morning, who had asked me what councilman. We're at a meeting that a lot of people seem to think it was intended for a smaller audience. If there is one happening, let's make sure we get there to hear about it, because I was left with the impression that she expected us there.
And that meeting was?
At the comp plan, the last comp plan meeting here?
No, it was for hospital services.
Oh, that was a small group. That was for the smaller group.
I was told she was there from maybe Claim.
Having a really hard time hearing you.
Sorry about that, James. No, I was told from Clay and some other people that, or just through communication, that it was for a smaller group, as requested by the facilitator. But when I saw her in Bedarkie one morning, she was asking why we weren't there.
I don't know, I was under no impression at any point in that conversation that it was supposed to be other than the small group. So I'll try to track that down and get you an answer.
Yeah, I can speak for myself, I guess. I didn't get any invitation from Shelley or anybody else to attend that meeting, so. I heard from Clay, I think, that it was just a small group prior to it happening, but.
If I may explain.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, there was, after the last larger group meeting, there were a series of questions on both sides. Well, I should say primarily from CCMC and NVE regarding some of the strains or thoughts about that relationship.
Perceptions that each had of the other.
Yeah, that's a good word, sorry. When they wrote the responses to all of those questions, I think there was enough concern that that would not be a productive meeting. So the conversation then ensued to have the smaller group really get some of the things out on the table and consider the answers to those questions. And that's how it ended up in this small group. And, just so you understand how that proceeded.
Any other questions for the manager? I guess I just have one comment regarding the audit. I am running for re-election, may or may not get a seat, but if I do, it will be one of my goals in the next 3 years to get that audit done much, much quicker than it has been in the past. There's no reason that there's no reason that they have to start the hospital audit in June, the year after it happened. There's no reason our audit has to start later either. We, the electric utility and the phone utility can have theirs done by March. There's no reason the city shouldn't be able to have theirs done in at least a timely enough fashion to make it useful. At this point, all we're doing is complying with the legal requirements. It's not doing us any good to have an audit a year and a half after it's gone by. So that will be one of my pet peeves, is to make that audit much quicker. Anything else for the manager? City clerk's report.
Okay, I'm gonna try not to get choked up, but if everybody doesn't know, Carol Merritt is done at work on Friday, and she's been with the city of Cordova for 20 years. And especially since we've been at the Cordova Center, I am pretty close to her office, so I've seen so much of her. So many people in this town love Carol, come to City Hall. She works with anyone and everyone. She's such a pleasant face to see every morning for all of us. And it's gonna be hard. And she's done a lot of service for this town, working here for 20 years. I got chopped up, I guess. She will be back because she has a beautiful grandson here and son and daughter-in-law, so we're lucky we'll see her plenty. Otherwise, the declaration of candidacy closed yesterday, so we have a slate of candidates and there are a lot of seats open. I'll be getting sample ballots available for people to look at probably Friday or Monday because there's rules on the people who are running who can come and inspect the ballot to make sure that I have the name right and everything. So for mayor, Clay Copeland and Robert Henricks are running. Council seat A are Tom Baylor and Stephen Sunby. Mr. Allison is running for seat F and nobody else declared for that seat. David Gleason is running for seat G and nobody else declared. CCMC Authority Board, Gary Graham, Greg Meyer, and Barbara Solomon. And that will be, there are 3 seats available and 3 people are running. School Board, 2 seats are available. Tammy Altermott and Barb Jewell are running, and nobody else declared for that seat. Write-ins can still declare with the clerk up until 5 p.m. the day before the election. And they do need to come and fill out a declaration of candidacy. They can't just start campaigning and hope to win. They won't get to win unless they actually declare with the clerk. I think that's about all I have. I have a lot of things to talk about at pending agenda, but we'll get on dates on that.
Any questions for the clerk? Next up, the staff quarterly reports. Those are all written in your packet. If there's any questions anybody has on any of those, I see a few of our department heads here, but any questions on the reports? You see none? Correspondence? Several letters in our packet. Comments, questions on those?
I would just like to mention how many letters of opposition there were to the borough formation. I think that was pretty telling. And want to thank Mayor Clay Copeland for his hard work on the Tanner Crab.
Okay, anything else? Okay, then we'll move into the ordinances and resolutions. We've got an ordinance 1173 on second reading. Roll call is going to be required. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, appropriating $500 from the General Fund Reserve to advocate and provide public information regarding a proposition to levy a 0.5% raw fish tax on fish landing in Cordova, and a proposition approving the issuance of a harbor revenue bond in the principal amount not to exceed $5 million, both appearing on the ballot of the March 5th, 2019 regular city election, including without limitation advocacy and the dissemination of information that may influence the outcome of the election on the proposition.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 1173. Councilmember Gard.
we voted to do this. We found out from elections in the past that sometimes it may be a good idea to get out there and make sure we've done a good job educating the public on exactly what we're doing and why we're doing it. So let's get her rolling. We're running out of time.
Roger that. Councilmember Meyer, any comments?
No comments.
Okay, anybody else have any comments on 1173? Okay, hearing none, then we'll need a roll call vote.
Ken Jones,
Yes.
James Burton,
Yes.
James Weiss,
Yes.
David Allison,
Yes.
Melina Meyer,
Yes.
Jeff Gard.
Yes.
And Ann Schaefer's absent. Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, unfinished business. Land disposal for Power Creek Lot 1. This is 4606. I think there's a suggested motion on page 84.
Mr. Vice Mayor,
Yes.
I move to approve the proposal for Tanya Harrison for Lot 1, USS 4606.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Councilmember Weiss?
Yeah, I think that if we were interested in anything, so far as, say, easement or something like that, we had the opportunity to put that in there, and council voted no on it. I think we put out an RFP that everyone, that's been satisfied, as far as a contractor, anybody without any communication, knows that we have a local contractor and ground worker, John Bannon, who voted in favor of this property to be moved. And that being said, there's no way to say if a contractor or someone that wants to develop this lot needs a little bit of that land, maybe they can put it in office to Tanya for an easement. You know, it'll be her property to sort out, but from what I see and where her things are going, it's the corner needed isn't, it doesn't even touch the driveway she's proposing to put in. And I'm not trying to hold you to anything like that. It'll be your property and your business. But like you said, you don't want to see people restricted from developing and finding a place to live here. I'll vote in favor.
Councilmember Gard?
From looking at the history and the record on this property, we've had 3 years of back.
You guys please speak into the microphones.
We've had 3 years of going back and forth on it with the option open for development of the whole parcel. We have seen no interest in developing the whole parcel. We have somebody that's keenly interested in a piece of property to put a home on. Give them a place to have a home.
Any other council members? Have any comments on the phone? Councilmember Burton?
I'm still not in favor of getting rid of this piece of land. I understand the comments that have been made. There's a time and place when something might be done in the future. I've always stood by that we should keep that lot, so I won't be voting in favor for it tonight.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? I guess for my 2 cents then, I'll take my shot here. Had a council member a dozen years ago or so tell me that the city should sell, or shouldn't have any land to sell. You know, we can, I guess bottom line is, you know, we could sit here for another 30 years and not have anybody interested in any of it. And if I was betting, I would say by the time somebody wants to build 6 houses on the lot behind there, we're gonna be driving like the Jetsons anyway and not need a access road. But certainly I think that there have been everybody who's commented on that property has said, yeah, the easiest route may be one way, but there are other ways to that property if somebody ever does want to build back there. But I'm in favor of it. If somebody's interested in and wanting to do something with it, then let's do that, because it's been, Cordova been around. It's been since Cordova's been around that nobody's done anything with it yet. So let's start doing something with it if somebody's interested. So I'm in favor of the proposal. So. Any other comments?
Call for the question.
Question's been called for. Let's see, what do we need on this? Do we need to?
I'll do a roll call.
Okay.
One question, should I abstain because I had ex parte communication?
No, that's not at all what you do with ex parte, different from conflict of interest. The fact that you told everybody here what you heard and from whom, then everybody's equal again, so that makes it okay.
Okay.
Okay, we'll do a roll call then.
Okay. On item 20, approving the proposal. James Weiss.
Yes.
Ken Jones.
No.
Melina Meyer.
Yes.
Ann Schaefer is absent. David Allison.
Yes.
James Burton.
No.
Jeff Guard.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-2.
Okay, thank you. Okay, new and miscellaneous business. Council adoption of the 2019 city land disposal maps. Is there a motion somewhere?
I move to adopt the 2019 land disposal maps.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to adopt the 2019 land disposal maps. Councilmember Jones? Or do you want to staff?
I just move to get it on the table for discussion.
Okay. Mr. Manager, is there somebody who wants to give a quick rundown of maybe any changes that have been made this year?
I'm seeking my planning director, a planning person.
Yep, so this is our annual land disposal maps. There is a couple changes. We made that new designation, which hopefully just makes it more clear to people who are looking at these that there's a little bit more involved in those larger parcels. We get a lot of questions about that. Also made the change to the avalanche lots. That's about half the questions about these maps. People immediately ask about those lots, so it makes sense to add those notations there. There was one letter for a designation change, which you can see on EAC Lake map. Well, I don't see a page number on there, but it's the second. 132. Sure. So it's that larger parcel that the water tank is on out like 2.5 mile of the highway. And the planning commission recommended to make that the new designation available requires subdivision so that the person who submitted the letter of interest can possibly put in a letter of interest to actually acquire some of that property. Let me know if you have any questions.
Anybody have any questions for the planner?
Sorry, wait, did you say the planning commission suggested that we turn it into a subdivision? Or
Yeah.
Be a recommendation?
Yeah, it's as shown on the map. So basically approving the maps as they are in front of you does that.
Oh, no, I was referring to what Jason tells.
Oh yeah, so right now the step that we're at is we're just changing the designation. So he will have to submit another letter of interest for the property once the designation has been changed, which will probably look somewhat like that letter to really get the actual disposal process started.
Okay, thank you.
Questions for the planner? Thank you, Leif.
Yep.
Any other comments on the maps themselves? Okay, this is just a voice vote, so all those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Pending agenda. Consider. Clerk, you had.
Well, yeah, I was going to say that we have work sessions piling up. Everybody wants you guys. On the 20th, Alan told you about the attorney will be here. And taxes will be the main topic, including a plan to implement the fish tax so that we're gonna remain positive about how the vote's gonna go, and then we're gonna hopefully have it in place, ready to go before the season starts. On March 6th, the work session is going to be representatives from the Navy and Alaska Command on Northern Edge. And it'll be a work session, but, you know, I'm sure the mayor, or if Mr. Allison's chairing, will just make extra time and make sure that there's plenty of time for public comment at that as well. And then March 20th, UBS. So their year end was here in this, but they're gonna come and talk to us about, and might we have an investment policy discussion, or?
Well, I think they're gonna give us an update that the fourth quarter, if you looked at the financials, the fourth quarter wasn't very good. So we've asked them to come and visit with us on a more regular basis. Also during that meeting, that work session, you will get your first financial report from our interim finance director. We hope that, he's hopeful that he'll have many of those accounts and balances sorted out for you, so that's going to be part of it as well, but we'll take up the whole time. I mean, we need to seriously talk about, you know, the permanent fund and the central treasury investment that goes with that, you know, given our conversations about revenue and so forth before that.
And then some things I might have left off on the calendar. March 14th, we always do that special meeting, however many days it is, 9 days after the election to certify it, it's required. So as we get closer to that, we'll talk about what time, and sometimes we can just have a noon meeting there and get it over with. And on the 26th, the harbor mug up, or whatever they're calling it. I gave Sam some language. We don't have to call it a council work session. We can just say that there might be quorums of any boards and commissions of the city, including council. But you guys are just talking about a bond, supporting that, I guess. So that you're not taking any action is what you're not doing. So you're, yeah, that's all I have.
If I may, we also need to, probably in early March, I'm hopeful in early March, consider, you know, having the first of some work sessions. We need to talk about the strategic plan. Oh, by the way, on your budget, we're preparing all of the final numbers and, you know, audit stuff, so your budget book, what you have is still all the numbers, but all the other supporting documents to be put in the book like last year. We're preparing all that stuff, waiting on a few things, so just so you know that if you need anything from us, come and ask us, because we can give you, we can reproduce any of those charts or graphs or anything that's in there. We're just putting it all together. But we need to have some work sessions, you know, revisit the strategic plan, because we were, I'm responsible for not having a real concerted discussion on that last year. I think I know where we're going. I think I know what the 19 work plan looks like, but I certainly want to hear from you. And then we've had a couple of staff meetings looking at reorganization, and we're going to have another staff meeting next week. met with a couple of individual departments regarding that. So sometime in March, I think we're going to be ready to write that first iteration on your board, and we'll understand what that looks like. Because the objective going forward is to have us gain your approval of that direction, if that's where I'm not sure what that looks like yet, but gain that direction in an effort not only to save money for the city, keep our expertise level. So those are the goals in mind, so that when we start the budget later in the year, we're budgeting to that path. And so it's important that everybody, but we're working on it at staff, and we're going to have a series of meetings on this, and hopefully we'll all be, have it all set and ready for you in a nice little diagram. So, March.
I was thinking maybe if we did that special meeting at night, then that could include the new
14th?
council, the new council, if you wanted to have a work session that night.
Yeah, that'd be good. 14th, is that, did you say 14th?
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Mr. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, good.
One thing that I see is missing is I thought we were going to have the borough topic brought back for an action item. And I just want to make sure that's still on an agenda.
Actually, how it ended was we were going to have a work session on wording the resolution. And Holly can speak to that in the
Yeah, I think we could.
20th.
We could have Holly talk to some of that, and then get that resolution prepared.
So we can call that both things.
Okay, thank you.
Isn't it kind of unnecessary with the Girdwood Governance Association saying that they are not interested in pursuing this?
That's your call to make.
Yeah, that's council's call on that. I think that's why we presented that information, to give you that opportunity to say, let's maybe not spend the money and see how things go, or, if you want to oppose it, then we'll go with it.
I think save staff time and money right now by not having to deal with it. It's not a pressing issue. It's like irrelevant.
But the boundary commission meeting still occurred, and they're still moving forward despite, and that's the information that I've received from other concerned individuals and corporations. And we've received over 17 letters from concerned parties in Prince William Sound in opposition. I think that we should formulate a stance one way or the other, so that future people who, this has been brought up for the last 30 years. I want something that solidly states the reasons why we oppose it at this time, so that posterity can look back at it and not go through this again of wasting more money.
Councilman Rivard?
I don't know that the exercise was a waste of money. I don't want to be caught in the lurch if there's a movement that happens for political expediency in the future. I want to have fresh information in the pipe every decade or two going down the road, so we can have information there to fight for or against whatever we see happening to us. So I don't think that the $25,000 we spent was a bad deal. I don't think we want to be in a borough, but I think having the information was a good thing. And I don't know that I want to see us stop any future research into it. So it's always good to know what's going on.
Right, we wouldn't be able to stop future research anyway. It would just be something to help make those decisions in the future for people who are sitting on this council. They can look back and see this is why they opposed it at that time.
That's fine. But yeah, I don't think we wasted money here doing this. I think it took where we
councils
expected.
change, and you can't tie the hands of future councils, so we know that.
Oh.
From other lessons, I'm just saying, it's not really a pressing issue at this time, I'd rather not use staff time and money to deal with it. So that's my position. I'm not going to change it. Thanks.
So Ken had asked for a work session to formulate a resolution, and I think James had been the second council member okaying that. If that remains the same, we'll put it on that meeting on the 20th.
Sure. We'll incorporate it into that meeting and work session. That discussion, because Holly will be here and she can give you the best advice on that.
And that's when this kind of discussion should take place, not at pending agenda.
Any further items need to be added to our calendar? We're taking off.
It is full enough. If you want to take anything off of that, that's always what you should look at also.
Just FYI, I will be gone from the 11th through the 18th of March. And may be available by phone for short times, but probably not for a full meeting. But I won't know that until right before.
Right, okay. And if you win the election, we can swear you in over the phone if we needed to.
Well, I can swear anytime you want to
Yeah,
swear.
I've heard that.
I've heard you swear before.
I have one question about the future agenda, the harbor expansion town hall meeting. Is that the one you're talking about for the 26th for the bond? Or is it gonna be a discussion on what an expansion would look like?
Yeah, I don't think the one on the 26th is the expansion. I think it's the bond and the match.
Oh, so that there, in the future, there's gonna be a town hall kind of,
Yeah, we put it on the calendar because at some point, you know, back when, what was it, a year and a half ago, when we were contacted by the State Economic Development Office. We were contacted by our Washington contingent to bring forward economic development plans. Because it was WRDA money and some of the transportation money that President Trump was talking about. So we were trying to get in the queue of that, and we'd had some meetings with Harbor Commission folks and our engineers, P&D, and we talked about if we could get all the money we wanted, what would our harbor look like? So we had an expansion, and I think we desired at some point to have that conversation with the community if that kind of money is still a pursuit of ours in the future.
So it's worth keeping on here.
Yeah, I think it's.
And we do have the clerk's evaluation.
Yes.
On the 20th.
I'll take that, and yeah, we are having that on the 20th. Correct, next meeting.
Hey.
And we did the Bears.
Anything else on the pending agenda? Yeah, we'll put that one out then. Audience participation. Any audience comments on anything at all? Come on up.
I'd just like to thank the council for your support of my hopeful future development. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your willingness to invest in Cordova.
Absolutely.
Any other comments from the audience? Seeing none, council comments. We'll start on the phone with Councilmember Burton.
No comment.
Councilmember Weiss?
Just thank you everyone for coming to the attendance of the work session we had, and that's it.
No comment.
Councilmember Meyer.
no comment?
Guard?
I'd like to echo the comments of those esteemed council members before me. No comment.
I'm not making the minutes with that, just so you know.
Okay, I made my comment on the audit earlier. We will be trying to get that sooner than later, and I too had on my list to talk about Carol Merritt a bit. She's been an excellent employee for nearly 20 years, and she will be missed, but I know she'll do good in her new adventure, and like Clerk said, she's got roots tied deep into Cordova, so she'll be back to visit once in a while. So thank Carol for her years of service. I'd like to thank the candidates who put their names in to serve our community. There's not a whole lot of contested spots this time, but it is an important election with the ones that we do have to vote on and the ballot propositions. It's going to be important that you get your friends and neighbors and everybody who can vote to go out and support those projects that we have propositions on. And I will talk with the mayor about getting on the agenda or how he wants to proceed with the bear committee or urban bear committee or whatever we want to call it. Anyway, I'll talk with the mayor about that, and I think it's a good idea to get that set up, but we'll see what his thoughts are on that. But thank Charlotte and all the others who came tonight, but especially Charlotte for her presentation. They all bugged out of here pretty quick as soon as they could, but they've got other things to do as well. So, but just pass on our appreciation to all those folks who came out tonight for that bear meeting, and hopefully we can, while there's keen interest in it, and we don't have a problem yet this spring, that we can get committee of concerned citizens together and those that work with it on a day-to-day basis to come up with some solutions. Not all solutions cost a lot of money for either the community or the individual. Sometimes it's just some common sense that needs to be reminded to people out there. So be talking about that. But thanks everybody for coming out tonight. And with that, we've got one other item.
Second.
With no objection, we will be adjourned. Thank you.
That's a good meeting, guys.